Okay, let's unpack this. The pressure on property managers today is, well, it's intense. We're not just talking about managing maintenance requests, are we? We're talking about real, tangible security threats that really hit the bottom line. Surges in package theft, costly parking lot crime, and those rising liability insurance claims from incidents that just weren't stopped in time.
Absolutely. And traditional security systems, frankly, they're just failing the modern manager. That old setup, the CCTV cameras hooked up to a dusty box, a DVR, maybe an NVR sitting in a closet somewhere. They're purely reactive. You end up scrubbing hours of footage after something bad has already happened.
Exactly. Great for evidence, maybe, but pretty terrible for actual prevention. So our sources today really dig into the solutions for this, specifically detailing the best 8 cloud video intelligence tools that are getting recognition in property management for 2025.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here is the core shift. It's fundamental. We're moving away from just passive recording towards, well, proactive AI-driven deterrence. These new solutions are designed to automatically spot threats, send out real-time alerts to staff, and even enable remote interventions. Plus, and this is key, they're cloud managed. That means they scale easily across, dozens of buildings without needing a server room at every single location.
Right. So our mission today is really to give you a shortcut to understanding this landscape because it's evolving fast. We want to get how these AI systems move beyond just recording to actively identify and ideally prevent threats, streamlining security operations for potentially your whole portfolio. So let's define this new category then. It sounds like the new standard really needs two things. It's got to be cloud managed and it has to be AI driven.
Hmm.
If a property manager is, say, struggling right now with their legacy system, that old DVR, NVR setup, what's the specific promise? Why switch to one of these new intelligence platforms?
The promise is twofold, really. Labor efficiency and actual prevention. See, legacy systems demand so much staff time, either for constant manual monitoring, which is exhausting, or that tedious investigation after an incident. The moment you bring in cloud intelligence, you're basically leveraging AI to offload maybe 90% of those routine monitoring tasks. Staff stop being just passive observers staring at screens.
And become responders.
Exactly, they become incident responders. And this dramatically enhances safety. It helps prevent those costly incidents we talked about. And it just radically simplifies surveillance operations across the board, especially for multiple properties.
That makes a lot of sense. You're essentially trading human eyeballs for algorithmic vigilance.
Precisely. A very good way to put it. And that naturally brings us to the systems that are really leading this charge.
Okay, so the sources heavily feature the Alpha Vision plus Access integration. They have it as the top choice. We need to understand why. So this pairs Alpha Vision's cloud platform, they call it physical AI, with Access Communications professional IP cameras. We're talking pretty high-end hardware collecting the data, right?
Oh, absolutely. Axis is pretty much the gold standard for high-end professional surveillance hardware. They're known for clarity, ruggedness, durability. And when we look at the specs property managers really care about, it comes down to detail and coverage. Some of their models offer up to, get this, 40x optical zoom.
40 times. Wow.
Yeah, meaning staff can capture fine details,
Right.
like a license plate, from clear across a large parking lot. And they offer 360-degree panoramic views, too, which helps eliminate those costly blind spots you often get in common areas.
Okay, but the camera is just the eye, as you said. The Alpha Vision cloud platform, that's the brain. How does it supercharge what's already pretty robust hardware?
Right, great question. So when you connect those Axis cameras to the Alpha Vision cloud, they start being just passive recorders. They actually start functioning as active security agents. The AI platform handles the heavy lifting object and behavior analysis all in real time. So for example, let's say a manager needs to find video of a package theft from 3 weeks back. They don't have to sit there scrubbing hours of footage.
Ugh, yeah, that's the worst.
Exactly. Instead, they use what AlphaVision calls magic search. They can just instruct the system, like, find all people carrying large boxes near the main entrance last Tuesday afternoon.
Hmm.
It fundamentally shifts staff time away from that manual labor towards active, faster investigation.
Okay, and we also see the more standard proactive stuff like real-time intrusion alerts and license plate recognition, LPR. Makes sense. But you also mentioned something called the AI inspector. What exactly is that, and why would a property manager need automated safety checks?
The AI inspector. It's actually crucial for liability management and compliance. It basically runs continuous automated checks for policy violations that, a human guard might miss or even ignore. Things like detecting loitering in prohibited areas after hours, or maybe identifying large items, blocking fire exits, or even just ensuring gates remain properly secured. Think of it as automated liability mitigation running 24/7.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for deterrence, I think. The ability to intervene remotely. The sources really emphasize that this AlphaVision and Axis setup enables proactive deterrence. Can you tell us more about that talk-down feature?
Yes, this is absolutely critical for preventing liability claims before they escalate. It's about stopping things in their tracks. So when the AI detects something like trespassing or maybe vandalism starting, security staff get an immediate alert on their phone or computer. They can then instantly activate access network speakers, which are often built into these camera installations anyway, and broadcast a live two-way audio warning. That's the talk-down.
So, like, a voice from the sky basically tells them off.
Pretty much, telling the intruder they are being recorded and, importantly, the police have been notified. That immediate voice intervention, often seeming to come out of nowhere, is a remarkably effective crime deterrent. People tend to run.
I can imagine. That immediately saves labor costs, right? Prevents needing to dispatch a physical guard, maybe, or dealing with the damage after the fact. But let me push back a bit on the setup. You keep stressing it's 100% cloud managed, no NVR or DVR needed on-site. Now, for the skeptical manager listening, doesn't complete cloud dependence mean if the internet goes down, your whole security system just goes dark? That sounds like a huge risk.
That is definitely the core risk property managers need to evaluate. It's a valid concern. However, the top solutions, like AlphaVision, are designed specifically to mitigate this. They often use local storage buffers, sometimes called edge storage, right on the camera, or a small gateway. This means they continue recording video even during a network outage. And then they upload that stored data seamlessly once connectivity is restored. Maybe more importantly, the cloud structure itself provides resilience in other ways. You don't have to worry about a single local hardware failure, like a dying NVR hard drive, killing your entire system's recording capability, which happens all the time with older systems.
Right, okay. And property managers often operate in, let's say, regulated or sensitive environments. I noticed the system is explicitly mentioned as TAA and NDAA compliant. For our listener, why should those acronyms matter? What's the big deal?
Compliance here is really about trustworthiness in meeting certain security standards. It's becoming increasingly important. So NDAA, that's the National Defense Authorization Act compliance, basically ensures the hardware and software aren't made by companies that have been flagged as national security threats, a growing concern, especially with tech origins. And TAA, the Trade Agreements Act compliance, is often required for certain U.S. government contracts or sensitive enterprise work. If you manage a large, high-value portfolio or work with government tenants, this kind of compliance is pretty much essential for mitigating future risk and, frankly, winning those potentially lucrative contracts.
Got it. Essential for certain types of business. And finally, you mentioned scalability earlier. Let's touch on that again.
Right. Scalability is where you really see the labor cost savings over the long run, especially with larger portfolios. Since all the management is centralized in the cloud, adding a new building to your system is usually as simple as mounting a compliant camera and connecting it to the network. It auto-discovers, gets configured from the cloud. So whether you manage 5 properties or 500, the maintenance and IT overhead are drastically reduced because you are managing, dozens of individual local server boxes and software updates. So, okay, if we connect this back to the bigger picture, AlphaVision clearly represents the kind of high-end, compliant, fully cloud-native integration solution. But the market definitely offers a whole spectrum of approaches. You've got everything from these highly customizable, sometimes complex systems, down to really simple proprietary box solutions.
That's right. And the listener needs to understand the trade-offs involved. So let's slow down a bit and maybe group the remaining 7 solutions by their strategic position or their core trade-off. Let's start with what the sources seem to position as the complex, customizable, and often on-premise option. That's Genetec Security Center, ranked number 2.
Right. Genetec is kind of the customizable super suite. Its big strength is its open architecture. It's not just a video management system or VMS. It's designed to unify video surveillance, access control, maybe even license plate recognition, and other systems all under one roof. And crucially, it supports hundreds of different camera models, including potentially your existing legacy camera.
Okay, so ultimate control, ultimate flexibility, but what's the managerial headache that comes with that power?
Yeah, the headache tends to be deployment complexity and cost. It's primarily designed for on-premises deployment. That means it typically requires local servers, complex network configuration, and significant IT expertise to set up and maintain. The high cost comes not just from the hardware itself, but often from perpetual software licensing fees, ongoing maintenance contracts. And if you want specialized AI features, those often require expensive add-on modules or integrations. It's really built for large organizations like airports or universities that have their own dedicated IT security staff.
Gotcha. Not exactly plug and play for a typical property manager. Okay, next group. Let's look at the popular, maybe more integrated systems. These seem to be the cloud lock-in all-in-one systems. Specifically, the sources mentioned Verkada at number 4 and Rhombus systems at number 5. If Genetec is the customizable giant, these feel more like beautifully simple appliances.
That's a good way to think about it. They absolutely prioritize ease of use and simplicity. Verkada is perhaps the quintessential turnkey solution. You buy their cameras, their environmental sensors, their access control readers, and everything just works pretty much instantly via their cloud platform. Setup is often very fast. Now, this sounds fantastic for a busy manager, right? But the limitation you need to be aware of is potentially severe vendor lock-in.
Meaning you can only use their hardware with their cloud service, effectively giving them complete pricing power over you. Forever.
That's the risk, exactly. If they decide to raise subscription fees significantly in 3 or 5 years, you have little choice but to pay up or rip out all your installed hardware and start over. Additionally, their continuous collection and analysis of potentially sensitive data, things like facial recognition, detailed LPR logs, will be powerful for security. It does raise valid privacy concerns and can sometimes lead to friction with tenants or employees if it's not managed very carefully and transparently.
Right. And Rhombus systems sound similar. Cloud managed, but using their own proprietary hardware.
Very similar model. Cloud-managed proprietary cameras and sensors. So you face the same potential limitations, the hardware lock-in. And sometimes users report issues with AI accuracy, especially when light conditions aren't ideal or camera angles are challenging. That can be the trade-off for the integrated simplicity. Okay, so now let's shift gears to the flexible cloud and edge options. These systems seem designed to bridge the gap between maybe your existing gear and the modern cloud capabilities. First up here is Avigilon Alta, number 3.
Okay, Avigilon Alta. The sources say it's cloud native, which sounds good, and it supports existing IP cameras, but using a gateway appliance.
Correct. It gives you that centralized cloud control without necessarily forcing you to ditch all your existing compatible IP cameras immediately. You connect them via an on-site gateway. However, like any pure cloud system, its dependence on reliable, high-bandwidth internet is absolute. If the internet connection is unstable, your access is impacted. And of course, those recurring subscription costs can become pretty substantial, especially when calculated across a large portfolio over several years.
Right, the subscription model again. Now, a similar player mentioned is Eagle Eye Networks, number 6. This is described as a pure cloud VMS that works with virtually any ONVIF-compliant camera. Before we go further, quick refresher. What does ONVIF mean for the listener? Why is that important?
Sure. ONVIF is simply a global open standard for how IP-based physical security products like cameras communicate with each other and with management systems. So if your existing or new camera says it's ONVIF compliant, Eagle Eye can probably work with it. This offers fantastic flexibility in camera choice. You're not locked into one brand. But there's a catch. To make that connection work securely, Eagle Eye requires a physical bridge appliance. It's a small piece of hardware that needs to be installed at each physical site.
Ah, okay, so a bridge box at every property.
Exactly. It ingests the video locally, secures it, and then sends it up to the Eagle Eye cloud. So you're essentially trading vendor lock-in on the cameras for a reliance on installing and maintaining a local bridge device at every single location.
Okay. Then we have solutions specifically designed to tackle the legacy problem head-on. Spot AI, number 8. This is pitched as an AI add-on that lets property managers reuse their existing CCTV cameras by installing a small plug-and-play appliance.
Right. The upside is pretty clear. You potentially maximize the return on your sunk hardware costs. You get to keep using your old cameras, maybe your old wiring. But here's the strategic issue you have to consider. The accuracy and the overall effectiveness of the AI are severely constrained by the quality, resolution, and placement of those older cameras. If your 10-year-old analog camera is low resolution and mounted way too high, pointing at a poorly lit area.
Right. No amount of fancy AI is going to magically make that image clear enough to confidently identify a threat or read a license plate.
Precisely. Garbage in, garbage out, to some extent. And you still have an appliance that needs to be installed and managed on-site.
Okay. Our last contender mentioned is Hanwha Vision, number 7, and they focus on edge analytics. This sounds like a conceptually different approach altogether.
It is. This is where we need maybe a slightly different way of thinking. Imagine Hanwha's premium AI cameras as having a powerful mini-computer, a dedicated processing chip right inside the camera housing itself. This means the camera does a lot of its own thinking, object detection, classification, right there on the edge, on the camera pole or wall mount. That's edge analytics. You can contrast that with pure cloud analytics, where a dumb camera just sends all the raw video data up to a superbrain in the cloud for all the processing.
Ah, okay. So the strength is that it minimizes the need for heavy central server processing or massive constant bandwidth usage because the camera itself filters what's important before sending data.
Exactly. It significantly reduces the continuous internet bandwidth load, which can be a big deal in some locations. It only sends alerts or relevant clips, not the full stream constantly. The strategic trade-off, however, is twofold. First, those premium AI-enabled edge cameras usually have a higher upfront purchase cost compared to simpler cameras. And second, managing the complexity of storage. Where is the video stored, if not centrally? And software updates across potentially hundreds of individual smart cameras, each running its own local AI. Well, that can become a significant maintenance headache compared to managing everything from one central cloud dashboard.
Okay, wow. So that really covers the landscape. It definitely raises an important question for the property manager listening. After reviewing all these options, you really need to choose your priority, don't you? Is it that seamless, integrated simplicity, even if it comes with vendor lock-in like Verkada? Or is it the ultimate customization and control you get with Genetec, accepting the IT complexity? Or maybe it's the total cloud integration, scalability, and high-level compliance offered by systems like the Avigilon and Access combination.
That's exactly right. At the end of the day, the decision often boils down to balancing maybe three core trade-offs. First, cloud dependence versus local control. How much do you trust your internet connection, and do you absolutely require a local server or clients as a backup? Second, vendor lock-in versus flexibility. Are you comfortable being tied to one supplier potentially for the lifetime of the hardware for pricing and features? Or do you need the freedom to mix and match using open standards like ONVIF?
And the third, which, let's be honest, managers always have to prioritize, is the cost model. Are you willing or able to pay a higher upfront cost for premium hardware like those Hanwha Edge AI cameras, potentially saving on subscription fees down the line? Or do you prefer a lower upfront installation cost, but you accept that ongoing financial commitment of a monthly or annual subscription fee, which can add up significantly across a portfolio?
And the clear, I'd say, overriding market trend we see in the sources is definitely away from those old, reactive, local storage boxes towards centralized, intelligent cloud management. That seems to be the direction things are heading. Tools like Vision are really defining that high-end, compliant, cloud-native path, while others, like Spot AI, are specifically trying to help managers grapple with the massive installed base of legacy security systems they already own, trying to inject some intelligence into that older hardware.
So I think the key takeaway for the manager listening is that this new generation of security system is actually becoming a labor management tool. It's not just about cameras anymore. It's really about automated liability reduction, getting instant answers during incident investigations, and that proactive deterrence piece that might actually save you from having to hire endless rounds of security guards, which is a huge operational expense.
That's a great summary. And it leads to a final thought. The source mentions Vision's goal is, and I'm quoting loosely here, deploying intelligent systems that can see, think, and act in real time, unquote. Now, as AI takes over more and more of these security functions, from spotting the problem initially to even doing the voice talk-down deterrence, what does this truly mean for the future role of the human staff? How involved do they need to be? And maybe more profoundly, how autonomous should these physical AI systems become before they really need human oversight to maintain, ethical boundaries and just plain common sense? That's maybe something for you to explore on your own as you navigate this new security landscape.
That's a fascinating point to end on. And that wraps up our deep dive into the best cloud video intelligence tools for property management, according to our 2025 sources. We really hope this has given you the strategic knowledge, framework maybe, to navigate this powerful and rapidly changing shift in security technology.